Hey guys, welcome to the ATP project. You're with your host Steve and me, Nick.
Nick, you got the giggles.
I've got the giggles.
That's funny, isn't it?
I know. We won't tell you what went on before we started filming.
I know, and this topic is no laughing matter.
No.
Starving.
Yeah.
When did starving start? Well, we were going to be talking about fasting.
We're going to be talking about. I was trying to think of another lead-in around that, but I couldn't. So I just stared at you.
but fasting, I mean, isn't it just not eating and not drinking?
It is. That's it. That's all there is to it. Fasting. So just if anyone's a bit confused, we are going to be talking about fasting today.
Yep.
And all the different types of fasting
Yep.
and the effects it has on your health. And obviously, you know, it's very popular, has been for a long time. So, and it seems to be back in vogue again now. So
when did humans start fasting?
well, long time ago. I mean, we could even thousands of years ago, really, humans have been fasting, but a lot of religions
Yep.
have fasted throughout the years. So Ramadan, which we're going to talk about.
Well, Ramadan, we've just come into Ramadan, of course.
Yeah.
And that's when the Holy Quran came down, and I don't know much about it, but for about 4 weeks we fast because of the Holy Quran. So that's interesting. So for example, this type of fasting is you fast from sun up till sundown.
Yes.
And the reason why I like it as a scientist is because we can test those people. We can see what happens to them.
Yeah.
Because they religiously stick to
That's
their
right.
diet.
That's right.
It's not like you and I when we used to give out diets, or you still do. You're still naturopath. You know, you're still practicing. Where I don't eat cake, and they go and eat cake.
Yeah.
These are very strict, so it's very good. We've got some papers on that. Also, some ancient Greeks used to fast.
Yes, ancient Greece, like Plato and Pythagoras.
Really? Did Homer fast?
Oh, maybe.
He was ancient.
No, Homer would never have fasted. Like
No, not that Homer. Not the great yellow
I'm
man.
so used to talking
you
about
know Homer,
Simpsons,
the great
Steve.
man?
I do know, yeah. Homer,
Yeah,
the great man.
okay.
Sorry, you usually talk about The Simpsons.
Yep.
So Plato, they believed that it boosted their health and mental performance.
Wow.
So they would fast. So they were
Yep.
all over it back in the day.
They were all over it.
Yeah, Jewish, religion.
Yep.
Do it on. Am I going to say this wrong? Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, yep.
Kippur. Sorry,
Yom
sorry
Kippur.
to,
And
offend anybody there.
what about Lent? Anything about Lent?
Yeah, so Christians, so many religions obviously have their sort of cultural sort of beliefs around fasting and what they do around fasting. So they do a partial fast, the Christians, during the 40 days of Lent.
Yeah, leading up to JC's crucifixion. Because I was former Catholic, so we used to.
You'd be all over it.
Well, not really.
Well, you know all about
I
it,
said
Steve.
former. So it's like we used to, Friday nights there's no meat and all this sort of stuff, and I'm doing it a disservice, but we still ate. But yeah, the true fasting was really the Muslims are the famous ones for fasting.
They do a great.
But research started in the 1900s, didn't it?
Did, yeah. Research started about experimenting with how much, how often, to feed. This all started on lab mice and rats, obviously.
Yep.
So, yeah, it started way back in the 1900s.
Can I give you the first human trial?
Yes.
1916. You remember those days?
Yeah, I do. Vaguely. I was pretty young back in the day.
I was only a kid.
Yeah.
But look at this paper. I love these old papers. I mean, I'm holding up the
it looks
camera.
great, doesn't it?
But it looks cool, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it looks like an old paper.
It's like you want to read this because this is important stuff.
Yeah.
And what they did, it was called the fasting treatment of diabetes. Because back then, diabetes was something where you had sugar in the urine. And remember, sugar in the urine is the severe diabetes. And what people used to do to test it was to test the sugar in the urine. And even before they tested it, they used to pee near ants. And if the ants were attracted to it, there's sugar in the urine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So a lot of people who pee in the toilet gets ants in the toilet, and that's a sign of diabetes. It could be.
Do they not flush the toilet?
No. Well, some guys
Sorry,
pee in areas
this is new to me.
Sometimes males miss.
Oh. Okay, cool. I didn't realise that was a thing.
Oh, yeah, males
And then
miss
ants.
the toilet.
So if anyone that has an ant infestation in their toilet may have diabetes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's a great test.
That's
isn't
great.
It? You pee,
I didn't realise
screw
that
these
we're gonna talk
laboratories
about
and
that. There you
screw
go.
these blood tests.
Yeah, who needs these expensive clinical trials?
Yeah, exactly. But
Miss the toilet.
this is the first clinical trial on fasting, and what they did was they put a bunch of guys that were obese and quite. When I say elderly, like this person's 44, they were considered
elderly, right?
Hey, the average age in the turn of the century is 47.
that's
so
true.
44 is bloody elderly.
We're doing well then, aren't we, Steve?
Very, very well. I mean, one of the guys at 44 had a urine contain 137 grams of sugar.
What?
Yep. So there's some pretty severe diabetics here. And you got to remember, this is pre-insulin. Insulin is 1928. So diabetics pretty much just died.
Yeah.
They didn't live long.
Yeah.
So so there was a bit of a desperate method back then to try and treat this disease because, kids that were born with diabetes type 1 would just simply die.
Yeah.
So these are the type 2s, the adult onset, or they call it type 2 now because kids get it because kids eat like shit, a lot of things. So basically what they found was that, and they put people on fast for several days, like 4 or 5 days. None of this ethics considerations. You just not eat.
I know. Yeah.
You just drink water, nothing else. And it would be a little bit cruel these days, but these people improved dramatically. And basically the conclusion of this study was fasting up to several days was well borne by cases of mild and severe diabetes, ages ranging from 24 to 79. The urine was made free from sugar. The blood sugar was reduced and acidosis greatly diminished. All patients felt better for the fast. And I love this actual statement, and it's going to go back to the Greeks. The rapid abolition of sugar had an excellent mental effect.
Yes, you go.
Don't you love that?
There you go.
I love it. It's literally written. And they tested different foods that increased blood sugar levels.
Yep.
The worst ones was oatmeal, white bread, potatoes, milk, and a few other grains. Isn't that funny? But this is like, back then you didn't really know. I mean, because if you ate oats, there's no sugar in oats.
No, that's right.
But so having an effect on the blood with that is incredible research. And again, 1916, now we know that those things. So fasting was around since, as you say, since 1916, which is incredible.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now I want to talk about some rats because rats are really interesting to study because you can 110% control what rats do.
That's right.
Eat or not. So want to tell us about rats and where they fit into the big scheme of things. What sort of research is in rats and where they could restrict them for food, and they put them on a diet that most humans would struggle with because we're free living. So what happened to the starved rodents?
No, so they actually showed that they live longer.
So rats not eating live longer.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Okay, so that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the in the rat studies, they cut down their calories and starved them and fasted them, and they lived longer. Now rats are of course not humans and blah blah blah, but rats you can control. If you want to starve a rat, it's easy. You just bugger off for the weekend. Don't feed them. You know what I mean? Yes. So that's a good start to this whole sort of procedure. You start off on low life forms like rats, and then you move through to primates like us, and bipedal apes. So isn't that interesting? So over the years, of course, these rats were starved and they found they lived a lot longer. Yeah. So there's maybe something in that for humans.
Definitely.
And you mentioned before about intermittent fasting on say for religious reasons, and probably, and I've got a beautiful little graph here, and we'll fast forward this to Ramadan because you can test Muslims who don't eat for about 14 hours throughout the day, sun up till sundown. Now, Ramadan in Australia is in our so it's in our sort of summery months. So our days are quite long.
Yes.
So that gives you a good long period of not eating, and then you'd eat at night, and then you'd eat pre-dinner. Now, do you want to just run through some of the benefits that we found in those people and what happened to their blood markers?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to pull the paper out, see?
Yep. Yeah, that's the one.
So they had increased DNA repair.
Right. DNA repair, deoxyribonucleic nucleic acid. So DNA is in every cell. Yeah. There's two forms. There's mitochondria and there's also the nuclear DNA. So repairing the DNA means that you get less aberrant cell growth, less cancers. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What happened to the proteome?
So increase the anti-cancer proteome.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting because proteome is a measurement of cancers, and if you can increase the anti-proteome, you'll get less cancers typically.
Yeah.
So this basically repairing DNA and anti-cancer proteome, that's interesting because that means that fasting may reduce the incidence of cancer.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe the mechanism about that later.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about it later.
About the AMPK, mTOR, we talked about this a little bit in the past and how that can impact that.
Yep.
Increased insulin signaling as well.
So insulin work better, which means it reduces blood sugar and works better. What else happened?
Increased immune system health. Obviously, we all want that. We have better immune function.
Correct.
Increased cognitive function. So there's that brain factor again.
There's the brain again,
Yeah, and increased glucose and lipid metabolism as well.
Wow. Okay.
So, and increased circadian clock, which I'm going to talk about. Circadian rhythms and how that impacts how we impacts that a little bit as well.
So it's not a noisy insect that goes off at night. Circadian rhythms.
No, but I used to love the circadian. What are they called? Circadians. No, what are they called?
I'm trying to crack a joke.
Okay, just full disclosure, I didn't sleep well last night. It's all falling apart.
Oh, she's like, when you get to your age, things fall apart again. Right.
No, but I did love the cicadas. Cicadas. In Melbourne, we call them cicadas.
Yeah, I know.
Up here, they're called cicadas.
Cicadas. I know, it's a bit weird, a lot of different things.
Yeah, no.
Potatoes.
No, we don't call them potatoes. That's just a song.
It's a song.
Yeah, tomato.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. So the circadian rhythms we're going to talk about a bit later. So I'll skip over that now. So what if you do intermittent fasting, and it's often called IF, capital IF.
Yeah.
What are the four major benefits you get from it according to this research so far? And what are the four areas that you get general health in?
Yeah. So they've shown a lot of areas of improvement. A lot of studies that show that it regulates your blood glucose, which we're all pretty much aware of that it does that. Controls your blood lipids, so impacts cholesterol in a positive way. Reduces the risk of heart disease, cancers, as you've said, and other chronic diseases, and can manage your body weight as well.
Yeah, it can. And it depends on how, and we're going to talk about what a good fast is and what a bad fast is, because you can, and I'll just use an extreme example, you can fast for 10 hours and then go eat donuts and, you got to do it right.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about a diet that mimics fasting.
Yes.
That's not fasting, but it mimics it. So, all right, let's go through the stages. Let's say I just eat. What happens to the body as you not eat, like over the next few hours? Like I haven't eaten since breakfast.
Yeah.
Which was at about 6:30 this morning. So it's now real time, just 10:05.
Yeah. Oh, no, you've missed your snack time, Steve.
Oh, Jesus. Snacks.
You're going right through your snack time.
Well, the good thing about me is that there are people who struggle with fasting.
Yes, there are. And we can talk about that and the reasons why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's go through what happens when you don't eat. What happens in the first 6 hours?
Physiologically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you eat. And then in that first 6 hours, so your body starts to digest and absorb those nutrients.
Yep.
So hormones and neuropeptides, they're released. So they're sort of chemical signals in the brain and chemical messages in the body. They help move nutrients into the cells so that tell your body that you don't need to eat anymore.
Right, okay.
So that happens sort of in that 0 to 6 hour window.
Right. So 6 hours without eating I can do.
Yeah.
What most people do when they sleep.
That's right. And we can talk about that and how to fast and even how to start fasting.
And you sleep for about, 2 hours a night?
Yeah, roughly. Last night I did anyway. Yeah.
In joke, sorry for the listeners.
Yeah.
But most people sleep 6 to 8 hours. So most people fast that. So but we're going to talk about that. Okay, what happens after 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours?
6 to 8 hours, most of the meal has been digested. Now, I'm going to say probably even 5 hours. Maybe like 5 hours. Most of your food's been digestive. And it's now in what they call the post-absorptive state. So nutrients are available for your cells as energy, that type of thing. And then 8 to 12 hours. So your body's basically used up, cleared out most of these nutrients. And then the shift in energy and nutrient from use from outside sources, so from what you're taking in, then moves to inside sources. So what's stored in your body, internally, creates biochemical changes that define the fasted state.
Right,
so that's sort of 8 to 12 hours.
So this is where most people probably sit, because most people eat dinner at about, say, 6, and then most people eat something in the morning at about 6 to 7 o'clock, if they're early or 8. So that's 12 to 14 hours. But what happens sort of after 12 hours to say even, 48 hours, say 2 days? And let's skip forward a bit.
So sort of that 12 to 48 hours, your liver releases ketone bodies as well as store glycogen.
Yep.
Your liver and kidneys start making a glycerol and free fatty acids. And they, obviously your body will then start to utilize it liberates those chemicals so your body can use them as fuel, because if you've got nothing coming in, the body then needs to get fuel from somewhere. So then 48 to 72 hours.
Now we're talking serious fasting.
Yeah, so now you're in a fairly significant fasted state. So then the body will start to change up physiological processes in order to keep you alive, obviously. So blood sugar, insulin, resting heart rate, blood pressure, they all decrease, and insulin sensitivity and autophagy or autophagy, depending on which country you live in, improves, and we'll talk about what that is as well.
All right.
And then 72 hours and beyond, that's a pretty significant fast.
Yeah, people do it. All right.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how.
And people have to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people around the world don't eat.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have access to food, at any time of the day like we do in the Western countries.
Oh, in our country, I could easily go out there and there's protein bars out there sitting out there. I've got nuts here, I've got fruit. There's food everywhere.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets tricky. But go on about the 72-hour fast. So this is 3 days.
So about 3 days, yeah. So now by this time your body's dependent completely on fatty acid release from your adipose tissue or your fat cells for fuel. So, when you're in long-term starvation, this helps, preserve muscle, preserve protein, which is your muscle, as long as possible. So your body's going to utilise fat first, and then when there's no fat left, then it's going to move on to using muscle as fuel. So that's where you get catabolic.
And we had a gentleman do a podcast with Lee Castellan who was on Survivor, who fairly much starved for about 2 months. Now, he didn't fast for 12 months, for 2 months, but he very nearly.
Ate minimal food.
And he was just absolutely ripped at the end of that because all his fat had been diminished. So it's very, very important. So there is a statement here, and I want you to talk about this. When we eat maybe is important about what we eat. Where does all this research come from? Who was the main guy that really started the research about 10 to 12 years ago when they looked at rats and humans?
So Dr. Sachin Panda was one of the first researchers really to start looking, and there's obviously was others, and there is others, but he did a lot of amazing research around fasting and what happens in the body, the benefits, the negative effects, all that sort of thing. So Dr. Sachin Panda was one of the primary sort of people to start looking into this, researchers to start looking into this. So, and he has some amazing research papers.
He does. Now I know you got a paper there on him from 2012 where he looked at rats and that sort of thing. But he talks about circadian rhythms. Yeah. So you want to just elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah. So, we've talked about circadian rhythm in the past. I think in our sleep podcast, we talked a lot about it. And we are, circadian by nature. Our body runs on circadian rhythms. So when we have interruptions to that circadian rhythm, so say sleep interruptions, so people who are, we've talked about that are staying up all night or, not getting enough sleep or they're getting artificial light at night and all that sort of thing, it really throws that circadian rhythm out. And we know when we have lack of sleep that we can have some negative physiological impacts on our body when we're not getting enough sleep. So, we have our body is run on this circadian rhythm. So we have different clocks in our body. So we have our master clock. So, and this basically sort of everything runs off this master clock. So master clock is it's located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Oh, how awesome is that?
In the hypothalamus above the
chiasm, just behind the eyes. Yeah.
So and the master clock basically coordinates all the other clocks in the body.
Wow.
So this is really important that we know about the clocks. And then we have peripheral clocks.
Yep.
So they're housed in nearly every tissue and organ system, and they're reset by the master clock every 24 hours.
Geez, so this
then we have clock genes. So these are within those peripheral clocks and tissues.
Wow. Okay.
And these create proteins that become time-keeping devices and check time through, creation and degradation of proteins within a 24-hour cycle, which is very important. So these clock genes, obviously, they're running on circadian rhythm as well. So that's why it's not only important what we eat, but also when we eat. Yeah. Because when we eat will impact these gene clocks and our, circadian clocks quite significantly.
Of course.
And throw them out if we're, not eating in the optimal time, or if we're switching up the times that we're eating continually. So we want to get our body, keep our body in a nice rhythmic, circadian rhythm throughout our 24-hour period and lock it in so that our body knows, where we're at, what we're doing at a certain time of the day. It knows when it's day, it knows when it's night, it knows when we're eating and we're not eating. And these clock genes and these peripheral clocks, they sort of sense what's going on.
Yeah.
So they sense the light, they sense when the food's coming in. So it is really important when we eat, and that's where a lot of Dr. Satchipanda's research comes in around this time-restricted eating and eating at certain times of the day. So
it's just incredible because, I've got my watch on now, and let's say now is the optimal eating time in the real world, Western world. Like we're doing a podcast, I'm not going to sit here and just hang on. I'll snack on some nuts while So reality gets in the way of this, doesn't it? And this is where the trick of it comes in because, if we want to eat this way, we've got to really be careful and plan our days and all this sort of thing. It becomes very tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can.
And certainly it can be out of our mind clock, I'll call it, and it goes to like the real time.
Yeah.
So things change.
Yeah.
And there's people who work shift work, like my wife, and so this is really quite disturbing because whenever you go against nature, you're always going to run into problems.
That's right.
So this is really, really important. So we've got this 24-hour clock we know about and that sort of thing. So there's also benefits to fasting that we've established. We've seen the anti-cancer effects, the glucose and all that sort of thing. So going into the whole sort of fasting thing, let's go into the details about it. Like what are some of the real health benefits that people can measure when they fast?
So anti-aging is one of the big ones.
That's interesting. Remember the hungry rats live longer?
Yes, that's right. And we did a couple anti-aging podcasts a while ago. We talked quite extensively about a lot of these type physiological changes and what happens when you're not eating. So fasting can be very beneficial. So it slows cellular senescence, and we've talked about cellular senescence in the past. So that's when a cell is aged to the point where it can't divide and regenerate anymore. So
it's gone senile. That's the way I used to remember.
That's right. They stop growing and repairing, and then they resist apoptosis. So that's that
cell death,
programmed cell death. They release pro-inflammatory chemicals as well.
Cytokines, all that sort of stuff.
They increase protein synthesis.
Ew.
So that breaks down, formation of proteins and glycolysis, breaks down glucose.
Yep.
And then the ends of their chromosomes, so their telomeres shorten. We talk about that as well.
We talk about it's like your telomeres, like in your shoelace, that little plastic thing, and if that goes out, the DNA just unravels.
Protects the DNA. Yeah. So we want to have, a good length of telomeres. So that's what happens when our cells senescence. So
and also, if we are overeating, let's say, we know that's associated with a whole raft of diseases. Too many calories. We talked about diabetes before. That's one. We talk about obesity, which relates to cancers and heart disease, and so overeating is terrible. That's really, really bad.
Yeah.
So fasting is one way to reduce calories, but also keep in time with your clock. So it's more than just cutting calories.
Yeah.
And the problem with just cutting calories, and this is why fasting I'm a bit of a fan of, because for since the 80s, everyone's been told, you're getting fat, eat less.
Yes.
How's it worked out? We're getting fatter.
It's getting fatter.
Yeah, and that could be just people not eating less, but it's the message itself, for whatever reason, isn't working.
Yeah.
So we have to try something different.
Yeah.
We've got rat studies, we've got Ramadan studies that show that things biochemically improve. Yes, weight would improve in a bit here and there, but it's really about getting the body, getting the body right by having the right sort of, the right sort of biochemistry going on in the body.
That's it.
So fasting does have some benefits.
It does have some benefits. With senescent cells, obviously it's all going to happen, but we can, manipulate that somewhat.
Yep.
So, and one of the ways we can manipulate that is with fasting, so intermittent fasting.
Yep.
So that helps clean up these cells. And so it induces a process called, I don't know whether to say autophagy or autophagy.
I call it autophagy.
In America, they call it autophagy.
Yeah.
And someone had a go at me once for saying autophagy. And I'm like, well, I'm not American, but anyway, so I'm going to say autophagy. So not only does it help with that, programmed cell death, but it also increases apoptosis, so autophagy and mitophagy. So autophagy is when when we don't have, obviously we have times without any food in our body, then our cells, our body will start to clean up all these dead cells and dysfunctional cells and things like that, sweeps them all out. So that's autophagy.
Yep.
And then mitophagy is when the mitochondria and then also cleaned up. So mitochondria we've talked about many times in the past as well. They help with energy production, all of that sort of thing, ATP production. So, and they can, become damaged, the inflammation, all that sort of thing, overeating, all that sort of thing can impact our mitochondria. So that fasting also induces mitophagy when they self-digest. So get rid of all those faulty and, that sort of thing. So, so that's really a really good benefit, and that's related to the anti-aging. And then one of the other key benefits of fasting, and we've talked about this in the past as well, is it activates a process called AMPK.
AMPK,
or adenosine monophosphate
kinase.
Yeah.
But so what is AMPK good for?
So AMPK is like a sensor. So we've talked about that in the past, and we've talked about mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin. So it's like very hard to say when you're tired.
That's why we say mTOR.
Yeah, mTOR. So they're like a seesaw. So when one's up, one's down. So mTOR is stimulated by eating. So that creates growth. And then AMPK is stimulated when we're in a fasted state. So this is the body's signal of saying, okay, we've got no energy coming in. We have to make our own energy. So that's when your AMPK is activated, upregulates cellular processes that make up energy. So it breaks down sugars and stored fats to utilise those as energy.
Well, we want to break down our fats.
Yeah, and it also regulates inflammation as well. So AMPK obviously, helps to clean things up, and it also utilises some of our stored energy that we can utilise, so fat cells and things like that.
Good.
So activating AMPK is super important for anti-aging.
And very much so.
Yeah, so antioxidant signalling as well.
See, that's important. I mean, we think antioxidants as tablets or foods that have antioxidants, but, even fasting can activate antioxidant signaling.
Yeah, I mean, our body, we haven't had supplements around for hundreds of thousands of years, but our body has its own way of cleaning things up. So, as you said, oxidation or cellular oxidation is part of just what happens. And it's sort of like rusting, basically internal rusting. So our bodies have our own way of cleaning it up with our antioxidant status and things like that. So they break down with age and they slow down. So fasting can increase the expression of these antioxidants that help with the cleanup and reducing this rust, like sort of progress in our body. So that's another way. And then insulin or like growth factor 1 pathway. So it impacts that, IGF-1. So obviously they help with normal growth, anabolism, that type of thing. But if they're too high for too long, we can have a more inclined to disease related to growth. So, and the big one obviously is cancer. Yeah, so we don't want to have growth, continual activation of these growth pathways in the body, because then that leads to growth of cells, leading to tumours and things like that. So absolutely, down-regulating that IGF-1 pathway through fasting is also really important, and so very important for that as well.
It's amazing. I mean, and just to support you, that luckily, when you come across studies in the Lancet Medical Journal, April 2024, you're onto a modern now. It is April 2024 right now, and this was published April 2024. And what it is, it's called Intermittent Fasting and Health Outcomes, an umbrella review of systemic reviews and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. Wow. So all the trials, the umbrella review is everything, and it's published in the Lancet. And what they found was, and this just absolutely supports what you says, it had absolutely loads of things. Intermittent fasting reduced waist circumference, so that's important. Fat mass, it reduced fasting insulin, it reduced LDL, the bad cholesterol. Over the page, it goes on forever, this thing. Reduced total cholesterol, reduced triglycerides, but it increased fat-free mass. So muscles. Yeah. Increased muscles. I mean, that's good. Alternate day fasting, reduced fat mass. In people with overweight, obesity, type 2, intermittent fasting increased the good cholesterol compared to a low-calorie diet. So, and it also reduces blood pressure. I mean, they're all key health indicators. And again, that's a Lancet Medical Journal.
Yeah, it's pretty.
How cool is that?
Journal. Yeah.
You know how many trials they include in this one?
How many?
You're not going to believe this. 351.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
So it's a lot. So a lot of data on it. Yeah. So what you're saying is absolutely Correct.
Yeah.
Now, what they didn't mention in the end is inflammation. What does it do for inflammation? Because that's a baddie too.
Yeah, so it can reduce inflammation.
Yep.
So it can help. There is a lot of studies to show that it can improve brain health, as we said at the beginning.
Very much so.
So it can slow cognitive decline, maybe by mechanisms of reducing inflammation, controlling blood glucose levels and insulin, slowing just that general brain aging, the cell aging in the brain, and stimulating neuroplasticity. So
we want that.
So, that's the brain's ability to form new synaptic connections, preserves neurons as well. And it has shown promise in treating a lot of brain diseases and damage as well. So stroke, concussion, things like that. So intermittent fasting may have benefits in those areas as well, which is super interesting. So it's still emerging research there, but there's some interesting positive benefits of that as well for brain health.
Australians and Westerners typically overeat and they eat too often and at the wrong times.
Yes.
We have people who eat late dinners because of work or whatever reason, kids, but whatever the reasons are kind of irrelevant to the brain. The brain goes, no, I need to eat at certain times.
Yeah.
And then they'll get up and the first thing they do is eat. And that's terrible.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about, when we talked about those circadian clocks and what is the best time to eat. Yeah. So, if you're going to undertake intermittent fasting, what is the best time to sort of have your feeding window? Yeah. So, and we want to work with our body's own rhythms, our own 24-hour clocks. So eating later into the night can have some pretty significant negative impacts because, when our body has to go through stages of obviously detoxification, regeneration, and it's usually overnight that happens. So when we're sleeping. So that's why sleep is so important because so many processes are going on. So if people are going to eat into the night, so say they're eating, even to 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and some people eat 11.
Oh, I've got
later.
Family members that eat extraordinarily late at night, and it's disturbing, frankly, because they do it every night and then they wake up and have breakfast early, so they literally don't fast, apart from their sleeping time.
Yeah, and even that, people don't, you've got to look at, so when we talked about what happens after, when you stop eating, what happens physiologically in the body. So remember, it can take up to 6 hours, maybe between 4 and 6 hours to fully digest and metabolize the food that you've eaten. So you're really not in a fasted state until up to 6 hours after your last meal. Yeah. So if somebody that says, but I might finish eating at 9. So, and then I'm starting in again at 7 the next morning and get up and have breakfast, that's 10 hours, but it's really only 4 hours. Because that first 6 hours, your body's still utilising the food that you've eaten. It's not activated these other processes yet because there's still food available to use as energy.
What if you have a big evening meal, which a lot of people do?
Yeah.
They have a big meal in the evening. I do.
Yeah.
I don't eat that late, though.
No. So that's part of it. And then obviously the impact that it has on your processes overnight. So, those detoxifications through the liver. So the liver needs to detox. And if you're continually feeding and that impacts the liver, causes inflammation, creates fatty liver. Yeah. So people who are eating a lot and eating, for extended periods of time end up with liver issues. Our gut, so our gut needs to regenerate. That mucosal lining needs to have times of fasting where it can regenerate as well. Yeah. So there's all that sort of thing, like lymphatic system in the brain. So that needs time to sort of get rid of toxins and things as well. So, you want to be finishing eating a few hours before you go to bed. So 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, you want to be having your last meal. And then, you're sleeping, most people sleep 6-8 hours a night.
Except you.
Most people. So if you finish eating at 7, you go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yep, 3
By
hours.
1 o'clock in the morning, you're already in that deep fasted state.
Right, so
you're
that's 6
beginning
hours.
that deep fasted state. So that's 6 hours in. So from 1 o'clock, so then if you go through the night, say someone might get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then if you can extend your fast for another few hours after that, then that's a really good way to start to get all these processes going. And it's not that hard because you've slept through a lot of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I feel like the clients I see don't do this so much. So I don't know how common it is that people just get up and eat breakfast straight away. I don't know. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, it is. I get up and do some exercise and then I'll eat.
Yeah.
Because, we start work here at 8 and you got to get here. And, it's great to say, I'll eat breakfast when I get here, but usually it doesn't work that way. I've got to print all this stuff out and get my mind around this. So it's very
but you've
convenient.
You've also exercised as well.
I have exercised.
Yeah. And so and that's the other thing we can talk about, do you fast through exercise, that type of thing? It depends on the type of exercise you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you can maintain your fast, even till mid-morning, so I generally fast at probably 10 or 11 o'clock, generally, except when I'm here because I'm usually up earlier to get here. But generally I don't want to eat before 10, generally. So, so you're finishing eating at 7 o'clock at night and then maybe you're eating again 10 o'clock the next morning, say, or 11 o'clock. That's a really good fast. And you're going to activate a lot of these processes and the repair overnight, and it's relatively easy to do. So that's a fairly good place to start. And then if you're eating, say, from 10 or 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock, so that's about a 9 or 10 hour fast. So, we can talk about the different windows of the eating windows, but a 10-hour fast still has shown to have a lot of benefit. And that's a super easy way, and anyone can do that.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at fasting, try 10 hours to start with and be a bit strict about it.
Yeah.
What I'd suggest is try and eat dinner as early as you can.
Yes.
Because, you want to sleep on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
So, when the fasting or the hunger really kicks in, you're asleep.
That's right.
And you miss it.
Yeah.
And you sleep better without a big belly full of food. We've all tried that belly of food and try to sleep and it's like,
Yeah.
So try and eat as early as you can and then prolong the fast that way. So if you can eat dinner at, you said 7, I'll say 6 or even 5, if you can. You may not be able to, but if you can.
Yeah.
Let's say 5. Let's go to the extreme. And if you can fast till, then you only have to fast till about 8, 9 the next morning, say 9 next morning. And you've got that big window of fasting, which is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
So try that. It's tough.
And we can talk about people who maybe this might work well for, people who maybe might not work so well for. If somebody, and I get a lot of clients that eat their dinner and they say, I'm really hungry before bed. And then that does impact their sleep because their blood sugar levels are dropping, which, increases their cortisol, so then they can't sleep. So there's that factor. But then we have to look at the reasons. Well, okay, so why are you hungry once you've eaten your dinner? Few factors. Is it not metabolically balanced? So maybe you don't have enough protein in there. You haven't had the right carbohydrates throughout the day to help with managing that blood sugar. Or are you not very metabolically healthy? So your body is unable to utilize fatty acids as energy. So once your sugars are run out, you get that low sugar feeling and you need to eat again. And that's a whole nother conversation.
It's insulin resistance and stuff.
Resistance, which intermittent fasting can help.
Yeah.
So doing intermittent fasting will help, but you have to graduate it. So somebody that does have issues with poor metabolic health, then they do much shorter windows and they can start to sort of stretch that out as they become more metabolically flexible.
And there's supplements and you can exercise and you can get around. But yeah, I mean, it's really a tricky thing. Like a lot of your role now is to get people to that. I used to call it the health gap, where you'd have these great intentions or great ideas and where you are at the moment, you've got to close that gap so as people actually do what you say. Yeah. And if you tell someone to fast for 10 hours, most of us do it, but you start, say, 14 hours fasting and people go, and it becomes more difficult. Yeah. Not impossible.
Yeah.
You have dinner at 5 and have breakfast at 7, you've done it.
Yeah.
So it's not beyond the realm.
No.
But it's tough.
Yeah, we also have hunger cues. And I think that fasting is a very good way to hone your hunger cues. Because a lot of people have lost that cue for what actually hunger is. Like a lot of people don't actually get to the point of actually feeling really hungry. They go, I'm a bit peckish, or it's time to, looking at my clock. A lot of people eat by the clock. It's 12 o'clock, I have to eat if I'm hungry or not hungry. Or I feel a bit hungry, so I need to eat, whereas possibly they may be just a bit thirsty. Or, so it actually hones your ability to recognize your actual hunger. And there's a very significant difference between being quite hungry and just going, well, I'm just so used to eating right now, so my body's telling me it wants to eat, or, my blood sugar might have dipped a bit, or I'm a bit dehydrated, but I feel like I need to eat. There's a very vast difference. So this is a very good way to actually start to really recognize your hunger cues again and what it really does feel like to be hungry. And you'll be very surprised how a lot of times people really aren't hungry for most of the day.
They just eat. It's funny because you see people, are you hungry? And they look at their watch.
Yeah.
Yes, I am hungry. Look, it says it's, and it's like, No, I mean, are you hungry? Not your watch.
Yeah.
Is that hungry? I mean, no. It's all about when you are hungry, and you know what? Hunger. You can suck it up a little bit.
And you'd be surprised how people can push through hunger.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And the thing is, those the hunger signals come in waves.
Yeah.
So if you can pass one of those, you find that the waves lessen, and you actually find, you know what, I was hungry an hour ago. I thought, I was going to have to eat my own arm. I was that hungry.
Yeah.
But I pushed through it, and then it's 3 hours later and I actually feel fine.
Yeah.
So those hunger signals will diminish as well, and it becomes easier. So people that say, I don't know how someone can fast for 24 hours. And look, let's be honest, I don't want to fast for 24 hours.
I'd struggle.
But I have in the past, and it actually becomes easier the longer the fast goes. So getting in touch with your body and your actual hunger cues can be really important for people who tend to overeat or eat when they're not hungry, or eat for emotional eating, or things like that. So I find it really great for that sort of thing. And once you've reset your hunger signals, you'd be surprised how easy it is to just to eat.
It's tough, eh? But very interesting. So I've got a couple of other studies here.
Yes.
And a lot of people fast for weight loss. Mm-hmm. So we've got to recognise that. Fasting does also, you've mentioned amazing things that it does. What they did was in this particular study, it was published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging, and it was another 2024 study. So I've always try and go to the latest studies and that sort of thing. And what they found was intermittent fasting had a reduction of body weight, BMI, fat mass, triglycerides in adults over 40 with obesity without metabolic disease compared to reduced or calorie restriction. So basically, it works better. And intermittent fasting did not cause a significant decrease in lean body mass.
Which is important.
So it's very important because when you fast, your hormones change a bit.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a sec. But basically, growth hormone goes up because it says, we've got to preserve muscle. So hormones change. Yeah. With reduced eating, it just sort of slows everything down a bit. So that was an interesting study, and it's called The Effectiveness of Intermittent Fasting versus Regular Diet on Fat Loss on Obese and middle-aged elderly people. And this is a systemic review. So another big study.
Super important because, back in the day, the old bodybuilding days, it's like you have to eat every 3 hours or you're going to become catabolic. And, we all know that's not right anymore.
Before your eyes.
Yeah, but bodybuilders were getting up in the middle of the night, setting their clocks to get up in the middle of the night.
Ronnie Coleman used to get up and eat in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew somebody that used to do that too.
Really?
Yeah, they used to bodybuild. So, and as you said, and yes, it is great for growth because you're activating that mTOR pathway. Yeah. But we all know that we don't want to be in continual growth because it's not good.
Not healthy.
No. So, but it's important to know that fasting does not impact your lean muscle mass.
And that's 2 studies I've quoted doesn't impact it.
Obviously, we have to premise the longer the fast. Yes, as we said, you can then become catabolic. But for time-restricted eating, which we didn't really talk about time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting, there's a distinction there. Mm-hmm. But time-restricted eating basically just means that, you're shorting your time that you're actually having your feeding window. But it doesn't impact your lean muscle mass when you're having shorter fasts. So...
Interesting. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question. You are a female and you are a practitioner. So I want to ask you a question as a female and as a practitioner. Mm-hmm. Is there any differences to men and women fasting? What happens with them? Is there any sort of way where we can, is it better for men, better for women? What's the go from what's your take?
Yeah. So this is a whole nother conversation, women and fasting. So it's funny because when you hear a lot of conversations about fasting, very, very few people will actually talk about men and women. They just talk about fasting and general health and how it's great for, and it has amazing benefits, as we said. But with women, we have so many different considerations.
I know.
And I will say that a lot of the studies that are done on fasting are done on men.
Yeah.
The reason being they don't have cycles and they don't have fluctuations and they're much easier to measure. So...
And we get less angry
because
hungry is a term that I've seen. How am I going to get in trouble? No, I will get in trouble. But women tend to get hungry and hangry more often than men. I think. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I don't get hangry. Well, yeah, maybe a little bit hungry. Not so much these days.
No, I just got people I know that do that, and they can't. Skip meals.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's probably because their metabolic flexibility isn't that great.
Correct.
But also if they're women. Yeah. So women is a whole nother story. And This one I do like to talk about because, like I said, when the conversation of fasting comes up in a lot of this in our industry, there isn't a distinction between men and women.
No.
And there is so many more negative impacts that can happen with women to do with their hormones with fasting. And I see it in clinic. I see women that come to me that fast or they do all these time-restricted eating and different protocols, and they're having significant hormonal imbalances.
Right.
So, and there's reasons for that. So, we all, when we talk about hormones and things like that, we have to talk about the mechanisms, right? So our body, through our hypothalamus, releases something called gonadotrophin releasing hormone.
Yep.
And then that tells your pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. So, and then they act on the gonads, so testes for men, ovaries for women. So, and these come in pulses throughout the day.
Okay.
So, LH and FH obviously stimulate estrogen and progesterone. We need to have releases of those for egg, ovulation and then mature an egg and that type of thing. And in men, that stimulates sperm production. And it's very sensitive. Those pulses are very sensitive to environmental triggers, impacts.
Right. Yeah.
So under eating or not eating for certain periods of time can significantly impact or throw out these pulses for women. And so then these releases of your, LH and FSH are either reduced significantly or a little bit. And then that can then throw the balance of these. Your body's not sort of stimulating these, got the messengers to produce these hormones, estrogen and progesterone. And we all know low progesterone means that impacts our ability to ovulate. And then if low estrogen has other issues as well. So that's where it can be a little bit more difficult. So, the different hormonal profiles definitely comes into play there. And then women and men, we respond very differently to calorie restriction. So, so men, and this is the very classic thing women always say, my partner can just eat, not eat for a day or eat what he wants or, all this and he's fine or, anything, any dietary type protocols work really well for him and they don't work for me. That's because hormonally we're very different.
Very different.
And our bodies respond differently. And women are supposed to carry a little bit more body fat.
About 10% more.
That's right. There's reasons for that because most women have to have, they produce children. Some women do, some women don't. I don't.
You have the ability to.
Have the ability to. But you know what? And even to be honest, hormones are not specifically just for reproduction. There's so many health benefits that women need to have good balance and good levels of these sex hormones. So that's really important as well. And the other thing is that we have something called kisspeptin.
Oh, what a cute name.
I know. So there is
kisspeptin.
Yeah, so this is a little protein-like molecule that's essential for sex hormone and the reproductive process. And it's also vitally important in the process of maintaining healthy glucose levels, appetite, leptin, that type of thing. So and women produce a lot more kisspeptin than men do. Of
course they do.
And it's also a lot more sensitive in women than it is in men. So fasting causes kisspeptin to reduce. So if women are reducing, women's levels of kisspeptin are being reduced through fasting more so than men's, it impacts that gonadotrophin releasing hormone, and then it can have an impact on that hormonal production again.
Major
so kisspeptin, is probably one of the reasons why it is harder for women to fast for extended periods of time than it is for men. And then when our brain perceives that there's a reduced intake of nutrients and things, particularly carbohydrates, our kisspeptin will go down. So that increases our appetite, reduces our sensitivity to insulin, which makes us obviously more hungry. So that impaired glucose tolerance happens. So that's part of that as well. And then, of course, which we have to talk about with women as well, stress. And then so women can be men too, but we're talking about women at the moment.
Yes.
Highly stressed. Perhaps they've got children. Perhaps they're working jobs.
Perhaps they're married to a husband.
Right, perhaps they're married to a husband. A lot of women are exercising a lot, even to the point of over-exercising as well. And then they're under-eating a lot of the times as well, or in this case, fasting. So then you're layering all these things on top of that. Your stress level goes up. Your gonadotrophin releasing hormone goes down. So your hormone profile becomes very dysregulated, and then you can have all sorts of problems. So that impacts your thyroid as well. And how many women can end up with dysregulated cycles? So some women will miss cycles. Very, very common to have amenorrhea, which is an absence of a period.
Now, I'm going to ask you about that because I know you're a bikini competitor and you virtually...
No, not bikini comp, Steve.
What's it, body sculpt?
Body sculpting, not bikini.
Same thing, isn't it?
No, it's not the same thing.
Oh, I thought that was the same thing.
No, bikini. Well, look, I don't understand anybody, but no, body sculpting, you had to have quite a significant amount of muscle.
Oh, okay. That's
a bit of a
my
difference,
point.
yeah.
But you virtually starved yourself.
Yeah, I did.
Like,
I got my body fat down to 5%.
Oh,
which is horrendous.
Incredibly low.
Horrendous, yes.
Mine's 15 or something. The last time I checked a million years ago.
Yeah.
So that's incredibly low. So do you want to talk about, like, that's like what we're talking about. It's like fasting.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. So, well, it is very much the same, the low energy expenditure, no energy intake, that type of thing. So my cycle went. But mine went for a long period of time because I was underweight for a lot of time.
Do you mind sharing your weight? Because I remember it was like...
where my last comp, my weight was 49 kilos, my very, very last comp. Not intentional. My body just went into, I don't know what, it just kept losing weight.
Yeah.
So, but then I put weight on and I was sitting around, I'd sit around 54 kilos for quite a lot of years because I was training a lot. For, like, to put it in perspective, now I'm about 63, 64, relatively lean-ish, probably could be a bit leaner.
You're very lean. You're very lean now. I can't imagine you're less 10 kilos. I've seen a photo, of course. That was...
I could sit at 60 comfortably. So, I was sitting at 54, I was sitting at 49. So I was significantly underweight and obviously didn't have a cycle. So
for those who don't know, Nicole's a tallish woman. I guess you're above average, are you?
I'm above average in height, yes. I keep saying that all the time. I'm 5'7", so I'm not that tall, but I'm not short.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the average is about 5'5", so I'm going to say I'm taller than average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're semi-tallish.
I'm going to say tall, Steve. Not semi-tall, just say tall.
You're tall. You wear massive heels sometimes.
No, I don't.
I've never seen you wear heels. You seem quite tall to me. Maybe because I'm married to a woman who's kind of 5 foot something. I don't know. How old? I don't even know how tall my wife is.
That's terrible.
This is something we should know.
Yes, it is something you should know.
She's not very tall.
Wow.
So I don't know her height.
That's terrible. That's it. They could get the divorce papers out now.
She listens to this too.
Yeah, I know.
It's the only time she listens to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame her there.
I'm holding up. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is women need to take a lot more into consideration if they're going to be doing fasting. And, don't look at all the research as black and white and this is what's going to happen, because we have to take into consideration our hormonal profile and how that can definitely be impacted by time-restricted eating and fasting and that type of things. So, if you are starting to, and also if you're highly stressed, fasting is not the right thing for you. And we can talk about who should and who shouldn't fast at the end there. But that's a big part of that. So, and as I said, I see a lot of women with dysregulated hormones and they've seen doctors and they've seen specialists and they're trying all these different things. I'm like, it's purely because you have low energy intake, so low energy availability. Your body's hormones are just shutting down for that reason. So that's a really important factor. And then the other thing is when we're talking about premenopausal women, this is where we have to, obviously, because they're producing female sex hormones still. So postmenopausally, obviously, those female sex hormones diminish significantly, and our hormonal profile is quite different. So people will be like, well, postmenopausally, we have more inclination to, you have more metabolic issues. So, increased cholesterol levels and lipid profiles, liver health, body fat, belly fat, all of that sort of thing. So, well, in that case, you probably find that intermittent fasting should be great, right? Because you haven't got those hormones to get in the way.
Yeah, those crappy female hormones.
Yeah. So, no. Again, you have to be very careful. So women who are postmenopausal that choose to intermittent fast can still have significant issues.
Right.
For another different reason, because then they have lost that that protection of those hormones for the nervous system function and all of that sort of thing, and then that adrenal health. So they're much more sensitive and much less resilient to stress and stressors, whether that be exercise, environmental that type of thing. So they can still react quite badly to intermittent fasting. So you want to be, have very stable hormonal profile, whether that be premenopausally or postmenopausally, before you will even entertain the thought of doing this, any type of fasting.
It's absolutely. I mean, quite incredible. But there is one paper here on intermittent fasting and reproductive health hormones in males and females, a review of human trials. So this is a nice study which confirms what you say. Women do react very differently. They did highlight in here that there is a subclass of women with PCOS.
Yes.
Now, do you want to talk about that? Because PCOS, fasting may benefit them.
Yeah. So, in a lot of research has shown that fasting is actually very beneficial for women that have polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yep.
Because they have high insulin and a lot of times high testosterone. And we will talk about how testosterone can drop with fasting a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So
I'll just read the conclusion from this big trial. It says, on the other hand, fasting may have shown to decrease androgens among males, which could negatively impact the metabolic health and libido. I want to hang on to my testosterone.
Yeah.
So should I fast?
So it definitely can impact males. Because for the same reason, that gonadotrophin releasing hormone, the pulses still happens with men as well. So if you're impacting those pulses, you're going to impact your production of testosterone.
Absolutely.
So back to the PCOS women. So obviously a lot of times they do have high androgens. So for one, obviously it's dropping the androgens and it's also improving their insulin sensitivity, which is what we want. So their sort of baseline is up here compared to sort of women that don't have PCOS. So it's much safer and actually very advantageous for women with PCOS to do some intermittent fasting for their health.
I've got some interesting data here. On one of the trials, Lee 2021, they took 18 to 31-year-old women and it dropped their free androgen index or testosterone by 26%. Now, that sounds like, oh, no, we don't lose testosterone. You actually do when you've got PCOS because usually you've got higher androgens.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little data there because this review paper looks at all the data on this, not just one study.
Yeah.
And in men, of course, it reduces testosterone. And in resistance-trained men, 29-year-olds, this is your prime of your health, testosterone levels decline by 21%. And for elite cyclists, 27%.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot of testosterone.
That's a lot of testosterone.
So these are in these trials. So that's quite significant too. So we've gone through the benefits, but it's one size doesn't fit all, does it?
No. And look, have to say too that the benefits still outweigh for men, I guess more so. The benefits still outweigh sometimes a lot of some of the negatives, so the lower testosterone. And it depends on your testosterone levels. So if you're starting with relatively high testosterone or good levels of testosterone, a little drop in testosterone while you're doing some fasting isn't the end of the world, and it's not really going to impact you too much. And you're still having a lot of these other benefits from the fasting. If you're a male that has quite low testosterone to begin with, then perhaps fasting isn't going to be as beneficial for you. And, I see men in clinic with lower testosterone, they have high adipose tissue, particularly around their belly, so there's a lot of aromatase, that type of thing. So you'd think, well, intermittent fasting will actually work better for them because it's getting the body fat down, but actually can be detrimental for them as well. So it depends where you are at in your health. And, a lot of these studies aren't done on people who have very metabolically dysfunctional, hormonally dysfunctional. Obviously it has a lot of health impacts as well. So just because you're a male, then don't think, oh my God, because my testosterone is going to drop, I can't do the fasting. That's not the case. But we just want to make sure that your levels are where they're, in a healthy range before you do a little bit of fasting.
Because if you're an overweight type 2 diabetic man, which most middle-aged men are not diabetic, but they're overweight, fasting's still really good in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah, because you want to look at overall health. And, obviously testosterone is very important for men as well, but you want to get more metabolically healthy, and that also in turn will improve your testosterone levels anyway. Yeah. So the fasting is still going to be important there.
And you can go on fasting periods for a few weeks or months and then go off it.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing we should talk about too. Fasting doesn't have to be highly regulated, as in, you don't have to do the fasting one every day. You don't have to do, the same thing every time. So, yes, we talked about the circadian clocks and the gene clocks and that type of thing, and how that time-restricted eating in certain windows works much better for that overall circadian rhythm. but you don't have to fast every day. And there's different types of fasts. We didn't talk about the different types of fast.
Do you want to talk about the different types of fast? Because they're going forever. There's different types of fast.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find my list here.
Here's a big list for you.
Oh, there we go. Whereabouts is that list?
I'll put it in front of you.
Oh, thank you. So we have, there's heaps, as we said. So, people talk about, so there's the eating window. So there's the classic 16-8 fast, which is 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. Mm-hmm. And then that can be malleable. So, you could do a 14, what is it, 14-10 or however you want to do that. So those type of fastings. A 24, now that's an extreme fast.
Yeah, so good luck with that one.
That's eating within a 4-hour window.
Wow.
And that some people can go really well with that and some people not. So a lot of people would struggle to get all their nutrients and the calories they need in that 4-hour window. So that can be a factor for some people. So again, it's where you're at health-wise and what you have the ability to do. So if someone, wants to go do some fasting, go straight into a 20/4 hour fasting protocol, you're not going to go well.
But I follow a guy on Instagram, Eddie Abu, I think his name, can't remember. Cool guy, and he does that, and he eats mainly carnivorous. So, but he fasts or something very commonly 5 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's when he's a bodybuilder. Yeah. He was an Olympic champion bodybuilder. Yeah, he's now elderly. I think he's even older than me. Looks it. I know. Yeah. I don't know how old he looks. Way better than me.
Yeah.
Fairly fit-looking guy.
Yeah.
Super muscly. Yeah. And this is what he does, and he swears by it. He's very popular on Instagram, and it's quite funny, entertaining. He swears a lot.
Right. Oh, I think you've sent me videos.
Yes, I have sent you videos.
Yeah. Alternate day fasting. So that's sort of eating every other day. That can be quite quite difficult to do. That's a pretty hard one to do as well. And then you've got the old 5-2 fast. So 5 days of regular eating, 2 days of restricting your calories.
Restricted eating.
Yeah, so that can work for some people. And then the fasting mimicking diet.
I love that.
Yeah, so this is, you don't eat as much.
Yeah.
So maybe half the calories that you generally would eat a few times a week, and then eat normally for a few weeks and then back and forth. So you
sort of eat you eat a lot of vegetables and
so
watery,
very low calorie. Yeah, so you're sort of tricking your
protein.
body into thinking that it's fasting because you're not having those peaks and things of the glucose and the blood sugar issues. So, and then fasting for 12 to 24 hours, so 24 hours plus, they're extreme fast. Those types of fasts, again, have amazing benefits, but you don't want to be doing them regularly. No. Some people will do a 24-hour fast once a week. Some people less. Some people will do it a few times a year or even 3-day fasts. They're quite extreme, and you want to be in a very good balanced physiological place before you
mental health state.
Yeah, before you could do one of those fasts. So that's sort of that 16, 8, 14, 10. They're a fairly good sort of place to start, and there's so much research around to show that they're very beneficial for most people. Again, it depends where you're at hormonally.
Yeah. Well, say let's just take the 14-10 one. That's like eating dinner at 6 and then breakfast at 8.
Yeah.
That's doable.
That's very doable.
Very doable. And people say, what do I do in the hour when I wake up? Go exercise.
100%. And that's the first thing. I don't believe people should get up and eat. Well, it depends on your situation, of course, but I don't think people should get up and eat straight away.
That's in my personal take. I don't agree with that because of our Paleolithic lifestyle.
Yes.
We never got up and opened the fridge in the cave and ate.
That's right.
We had to go get the damn stuff.
Yeah.
Which may have taken 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Or
and
longer.
That's where that circadian rhythm comes in the day and the nighttime. So obviously when it was nighttime back in Paleolithic times, they didn't turn the lights on and watch TV.
You go to the fridge to do a homer and open the fridge and eat a snack at night.
Exactly. So the light, the sun would go down and then it was dark, and so you would sleep. So and obviously that's where, the night time comes in. All our processes overnight happen, regeneration and repair. Then we get up in the morning, the sun comes up, you go look for your food, you come back and then you eat. So not eating within that first hour can be quite beneficial, and then if you're extending that out with your fasting window, depending on where you're at. Get up and do some exercise. Get up and go for a walk or do some cardiovascular exercise. Some people will weight train fasted.
Yes, I do.
I do. And it depends on how well you adapt to that, or how well you progress. So if you are finding that you're maintaining your body composition or you're achieving your goals, so if you're goal is to increase muscle mass and reduce body fat, that type of thing, and that's happening, then that's no problem. But if you're finding that you're struggling with hypertrophy to put on muscle, create more muscle, then have a look at possibly that maybe fasted training isn't for you. I do have a half a scoop of protein powder before I train. Now I've started doing that.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I never used to, but I've started doing that now I'm older. And I'm trying to, my muscle mass can reduce in certain hormonal profiles. So I made sure that I have, but it's only half a scoop of, half a scoop of a collagen powder.
Yeah, just say a collagen powder. Yeah.
So I just have half a scoop of that, and then I train. But if I'm going to just get up and don't want to eat till 11, I'll just do some cardio or go for a walk, to be honest. I'll just go for a walk.
Okay.
And then I'll come back and do a bit of work, and then I'll either eat and go and do my strength training, or I'll strength train with half a scoop of protein, and then I'll eat straight after.
Gotcha.
So long as you're eating within that window, but again, it's very personalised, depends how your body actually reacts to that type of thing. But get up, maybe go for a nice walk. It's very good for the nervous system function as well, first thing in the morning, and don't get up and walk out to the kitchen and have your breakfast. And you can't, depending on where you work, I suppose. I mean, I have a smoothie in the morning, so I've got my smoothie. I come in here and eat my smoothie.
It doesn't look very great. It's a really interesting.
It's tasty. And everyone looks at me strange when they walk past and see me eating my, because I eat it with a spoon because it's very thick.
And I give you some nuts and apple and stuff.
Yeah, so...
But it's very interesting because, okay, so let's talk about food and fasting because, you know, it's all great and that. So what would you recommend for someone so let's just start simple. They want to do a 14-hour fast. So what would you suggest they eat for dinner?
So, I mean, and it all comes back to, and we've talked about this before, is what you eat throughout the day obviously is important for blood sugar regulation, as we're talking about, cortisol release, all of that sort of thing. So making sure that you're getting in your proteins throughout the day is the main thing. So and when we talked earlier about, you're not really in a full fasted state to sort of 5 to 6 hours after your last meal. But we can hack that a little bit. Okay. So if you wanted to speed up the time to get to that fasted state, you can eat differently in the evening. So if you want to, say you're eating a little bit later and you go, I didn't get my dinner until late and I'm going to bed in 2 hours, I don't want to have this food sitting in here. So you can choose a meal which is going to be less impactful on that blood sugar spike. So obviously fats can be better because they're not going to spike that protein. Or you can have highly digestible foods, so soups, liquid foods, things like that. And that will also be metabolised much faster than that 5 to 6 hour time frame as well. So that's sort of some way you can hack that so that it's moving through the system much quicker.
Right.
So, dinner time, that's where you can be at, that's what you can do if you're eating a bit later.
A little bit of soup, Yeah,
a little bit of soup or, protein. Don't have anything super high carbohydrate because of that spikes and drops. And that clearance as well, is going to be impacted as well. So, something like I had a smoothie, I know we're talking about dinner, for breakfast, so that will basically metabolise much quicker than if I'd had eggs, for instance.
Of course.
So it's what you eat is impacting, that sort of process as well. So, and then other things we can do to speed up sort of that fasted, being into that
little hacks. I love it.
Little hacks. Take a walk after dinner.
Oh.
That's as simple as that. So you can take a sort of a moderate walk after dinner, 30-minute walk, and that helps to clear that glycogen from your body because, you're utilising those stores. So that can be really helpful as well. Some people HIIT training can be very effective. So it uses up a lot of glycogen. Obviously, it depletes those stores quite quickly. It depends where you're at, again, metabolically, adrenally, that type of thing. But HIIT training in the evening seems to reduce cortisol, whereas HIIT training in the morning seems to increase it.
Yeah.
So in the evening, if it's reducing your cortisol, then it's a lot better as well. So
that was interesting. Like these podcasts, I learned so much. And that one when we talked about evening training, I was in my head wrong about it. Yeah. Happy to be because you learn stuff. And so training in the evening, I thought, rip cortisol up and you won't sleep. Doesn't.
It doesn't. No. It
doesn't.
No. So again, depends where you're at. We're talking relatively healthy people. So, and then the other things you can do is so glucose clearing supplements. You could have a go at these. So
One of them starts with B, doesn't it?
One of them starts with B, and one of them starts with M. So metformin.
Oh, I was going to say, that's a drug.
It's a drug. So if you want to look at a drug, metformin, again, it's very good for pushing you into that fasted state because it is reducing blood sugar levels.
It's a diabetic drug, been around forever.
Yeah.
It comes from goat-rue, been around since the 40s. Can deplete B12.
It can deplete B12, yeah. So it's a prescription, obviously, so it has its side effects. It is a prescription, so you have to get a prescription for it, and the cost is involved as well.
It's pretty cheap, metformin. I tried some many years ago.
Yeah.
I lost too much weight.
Yes.
So I had to go off it.
Yeah, no.
I was in the low 70s.
Yeah,
I'm normally in the high 70s to 80.
Yeah. So that's the thing. They're very powerful. So berberine.
Speaking of metformin, they work kind of similar.
Berberine. Yeah. We did a podcast on berberine a while ago. I wouldn't mind revisiting berberine because there's a lot of new research coming out about it continually.
Always is. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is very good for reducing blood glucose levels, and it activates AMPK, which we talked about before, which is putting you into that fasted, that processes when you're in a fasted state. So that can be really beneficial as well. Obviously, if you have any health conditions, you talk to your medical provider and be very careful with it. And if you don't have issues with high blood glucose levels, it can drop your levels quite significantly.
Right.
So if you end up with quite a bad headache, or you feel quite sick after you've taken it, it's dropped your levels too low. But you can take it with food. So people that have a higher calorie meal at night time, if you want to take some berberine, it can help to reduce that.
And berberine's a component of numerous herbs.
Yeah.
Barberry and hydrastis. Golden seal, a few others,
Yeah. So they can be really beneficial to help put you in that fasted state earlier than perhaps if you hadn't had those.
Now, what about apple cider vinegar? Is that any good?
Yeah, so apple cider vinegar as well. Obviously, it's not as powerful as berberine, but it can actually help to balance your blood sugars. So that also can be really beneficial. Even things like citrus, so lemon, lime. I usually say to people if they hate apple cider vinegar and they can't stand the taste. That's you. You can have some lemon or lime.
Who drinks that stuff? It's awful.
Oh, you drink it. I like it.
Oh.
I like it. So if you have quite a high carb meal, or you have a bit of sugar or something, maybe over Easter you have a bit of sugar and you're getting that sort of high blood glucose level factor, have a big swig of apple cider vinegar and you'd be surprised how much it can help.
That's interesting.
Yeah, really helpful. So because it drops that blood sugar down again. So that can be little hacks that
It'll help me because I'll drink it and throw up.
Well,
that's how disgusting that is.
Honey in it. You can get flavoured ones now. So no, I find that men are less inclined to drink it than women actually for some reason.
Although you surprised me yesterday. I didn't know you hated coffee as much as I did.
Oh yeah, I hate coffee.
Isn't that the worst, most disgusting
stuff?
It's horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah, we went to do some taste testing yesterday. Flavoured things, and one of them was coffee, and that was horrendous.
It's like you burnt it. It's disgusting.
I don't understand it, but people love it. I don't get it.
I don't get it at all. No. What? Okay, so speaking of coffee, does that break a fast?
Yeah, so let's talk about what does and what doesn't break a fast, because people, always asking what breaks a fast.
So I'm going to ask you a few things like coffee, tea. I'm going to say diets, drinks. I'm going to ask you a few of those things. So let's run through coffee.
Yeah, so coffee. So no. So coffee has no calories, really, realistically. It actually enhances autophagy in mice. So it won't. But of course, if you're going to put sugar in it and you're going to put milk in it, then obviously it's going to break a fast. So what we want to look at when we're fasting is anything that impacts our blood sugar. So anything that raises our blood sugar will throw us out of a fast. So, high carb things or things with sugar in them, sugary drinks, things like that. So, insulin levels fall during a fast, then that's our body starting to burn fat. So if we start to mess with that insulin and that, obviously when we eat something sweet or something with carbohydrates, increases our blood sugar, increases our insulin. So we want to keep that keep that nice and low. So coffee, no. Black tea, no.
No, okay.
Again, unless you're putting honey and things like that in it.
So good old, I was going to mention a brand name, but Diet Coca-Cola, or no, this is a brand name. Diet soft drinks. Jeez. Diet soft drinks. God, what an idiot. I was trying not to say it and I blurted it out.
It's because that brand is just so everyone just thinks of it. It's like Hoover. Everyone used to remember people used to call vacuums the Hoovers. It's a brand, but it's about my Hoover.
And I'm going to Xerox this. It's like, that's like,
Yeah, it's actually the brand name. But anyway, so diet sodas, look, No, because they don't actually contain calories as such. But I guess the jury's out on the sweetener aspect of that. Artificial sweeteners, no, they're not supposed to, but do they activate the taste receptor, which then, impacts your blood sugars? The jury's out. Some people yes, some people no. And look, a good way to test these things, because, again, everybody, different physiology, everyone reacts differently. So what might spike your blood sugar may not spike mine, and vice versa. So you can, if you really want to biohack to the nth degree, you can do continuous glucose monitors and have a look at what actually may impact you and may not impact you, and then you'll know. So, diet sodas for some people, maybe not. Things like stevia, the natural non-nutritive sweeteners, again, they seem to be fine, but some people still might have a reaction to those. So that sort of thing. Anything with, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, because, what about oils? Because oils themselves, what do they, because they don't spike sugar too much.
They don't.
Are they all right?
Yeah. So anything fat, any sort of fat, it doesn't really impact your sugar, your glucose levels. So things like that, so butter and cream and that type of thing, really shouldn't impact you too much. Again, you don't want to be overloading on it, that sort of thing. But usually it may not throw you out of a fast. So there's a little bit grey area depending on.
It's grey because there's calories, but
there's calories. But then if it's not impacting your blood sugars, then technically it's not going to throw you out of a fast.
Okay.
MCT oil, very similar. I mean, MCT
medium chain triglycerides for those listening at home. Yep.
Very good. It's very good for people, to increase ketones.
Yep.
Very good for the liver, all that sort of thing. So again, shouldn't throw you out of a fast.
Okay.
But, it depends. Some people can have fats and can have a glucose response.
Sure.
So it depends on your physiology, basically. So that's where glucose monitors can come in handy. And
what about like we're going to use our electrolytes? What about electrolyte drinks?
Yeah, so electrolyte drinks won't. And we didn't really talk about electrolytes during fasting, but that can be really important with fasting.
Longer fast.
Longer fast, because you can, deplete electrolytes.
Yep.
So no. Not really.
All right. What about if I go sip on some branched-chain amino acids? Oh, like I did just a little while ago.
Yes. So yes.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So amino acids, they will stimulate mTOR, as we said, which will throw you out of a fast, put you into that growth
muscles. Protein
pathway.
powder?
So yes, most protein powders, because of the amino acid profile, will throw you out of a fast.
What about something weird like toothpaste?
Yeah, people ask this question quite a bit. Well, toothpaste, unless you're eating it, and then there's probably a whole other
as a kid I used to swallow it. Can you believe that?
Used to swallow it. Did you?
Isn't that disgusting?
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Well, I mean, it's not disgusting. It's just odd.
It's odd.
Yeah. So
what about weird sweeteners like the monk fruits and those sort of things? Yeah.
So again, the jury's out again. Monk fruit, it's still new research around that. But it can obviously activate the sweet receptors on the tongue, which then can send signals to increase blood glucose in anticipation. So possibly, some we don't know about that. You know. And then obviously artificial sweeteners, again, supposedly not, but the jury's out.
They're not good for you.
Yeah. So look, I would say if you're fasting, just stick to things like coffee, tea, maybe some MCT oil if you're trying, trying to get your ketones up, that type of thing. But really, realistically, if you're looking for things to have during your fast, then you should be shortening your fast.
All right. So you've talked about women and fasting. It's a bit grey and all this sort of thing. Are there any categories of people that should never, or you really shouldn't consider fasting? And if they are, or they want to, they can check Nicole Brown Naturopathy. Just Google your name. You can speak to you about it. But are there people that should never fast?
Yes. So there are certain populations that should never fast. Pregnant women. I mean, you'd think it was obvious, but it's not you. Or breastfeeding women.
I'm not that either.
So, of course. And look, that's more common. It's women breastfeeding, they were trying to lose baby weight. I have seen that before.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be doing that. Obviously impacts their milk production and other issues there as well. Anyone with adrenal maladaptation or dysregulation, so, dysregulated nervous system function, that type of thing, because any type of extra stressor, and fasting is a stressor, good, bad, otherwise. people with a history of eating disorders.
Oh, yeah.
This one's quite significant. So, if you're restricting your food to certain times and you have a history of eating disorders.
Bulimia, anorexia nervosa.
Yeah, it can be detrimental there as well. So, and, women, as I said earlier, with dysregulated hormonal profiles or issues or fertility issues, or even women who are looking to fall pregnant, that also can be a factor. People with thyroid conditions as well, those types of things. So if you have any sort of underlying, low-level imbalances or any even chronic conditions aside from maybe diabetics and things like that where this can be useful, you just want to consult with the healthcare professional first just to make sure. But pregnant women, women who are breastfeeding, definitely that's always a no-no across the board. So, but everyone else can have amazing benefits. And as we said, anti-aging, benefits on the brain, cardiovascular system health, reducing cancer risk in a lot of cases
weight loss, cholesterol, lipids, sugars. There's, longevity. There's lots of benefits. So this is really an interesting topic, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And, look, to give it a try, and just feel it out, see how you go and play around with the different ways to fast. As you said, start with a smaller fasting window and extend it out.
Try 14 hours.
Yeah, 14 hours.
Try fast, and then include sleeping.
Yeah.
So try that.
Yeah.
If you're not pregnant, all the other things.
Yeah.
That's great, Nic. So all right, if they've got any questions, they can speak to you, of course. But is there anything else we need to talk about? I think that's about it. We've sort of run out of time.
I think we've run out of time. We could go on talking about it forever.
Hours, couldn't we, this one?
We could maybe do another one down the track.
We'll do another one down the track. All right. Well, thanks for this, Nic, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.